A sneak peek into what we have lined up for you this evening. Taking stock and planning for the year, President William Ruto leads cabinet to a retreat in Nanyuki, Laikipia County. Who is your next member of parliament? Garissa Township, Kandara and Elgeyo Marakwet residents vote to elect in new legislators. And are you on the right track, says World Athletics President Sebastian Coe as he lauds Kenya's commitment to fight doping. Fare thee well. Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI is laid to rest. Good evening. If you're tuning in, this is Prime Edition. I'm Regina, Manyara, and our sign language interpreter is none other than Lady Lucy Moura. Now, President William Ruto will from Friday, which is tomorrow, chair a cabinet retreat seeking to create synergy in the country's topmost decision-making organ. The meeting also brings together principal secretaries and other senior government officials critical in delivering the Kenya Kwanza agenda in the new year. John Jacob Curia is in Nanyuki and files the following report.
The four-day cabinet retreat at Mount Kenya Safari Club in Nanyuki commenced Thursday morning with the arrival of cabinet secretaries, principal secretaries and senior government officials. Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi leading fellow government officials through the program, with government keen on creating synergy in cabinet and enhancing service delivery.
Harmony and proper coordination in the operations of government. All right? We want to be able to appreciate that the government is one. Serikali ni moja. There are not two governments, there are not three governments. Serikali ni moja, and it is important that the key players, led by the president, are in consonance when it comes to understanding what the top priorities of the government are.
The cost of living ranks high among the issues to be discussed as Kenyans continue to bear the weight.
Priority number one is the economy, number two the economy, number three is the economy. So we must look at it that whatever we do, are we improving the lives of Kenyans? Are we creating jobs? Okay? Are we expanding our economy?
As an entire government, we are here to take stock of what we have done so far within the first 100 days. You are aware that our campaign agenda was anchored on the bottom-up economic plan. We have now been in government for 100 days. We need to take stock, evaluate what we have achieved so far, what lessons we have learned also that can now inform what we need to do moving forward.
We had an engagement with the National Assembly on delegated legislation. We went through the regulations, and on 30th, on 27, we were able to table, and this regulation was passed by Parliament on 30th of November last month. So as we speak, this fund is legal, anchored well within the law.
While each ministry is expected to highlight its priorities for the year, members of the cabinet and the other senior government officials will also be taken through aspects of modern-day governance and optimizing output through work-life balance.
It is important that the new players, because you have permanent secretaries, you have cabinet ministers, some who have not held these positions before or have not been in the public space before. Do we all understand the rules of the game? Do you all appreciate the guidelines and provisions as required within the realm of public service?
President William Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua arrived in Nanyuki Thursday evening ahead of a retreat. Within the last 2 months, there have been instances of cabinet secretaries overlapping in their roles, which is one of the issues this retreat hopes to resolve. This even as cabinet outlines President Ruto's agenda in the new year. John Jacob Curia, Prime Edition.
Indeed, we'll be bringing you updates from that retreat. Now, still keeping up with matters politics is that President William Ruto now says his proposal to establish the office of Leader of the Opposition is not a job offer for Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition leader Raila Odinga. In a one-on-one interview with journalists, President Ruto said the office of Leader of Opposition will be a public entity mandated to oversight the government.
In an engagement with journalists from mainstream media organizations at State House, Nairobi, President William Ruto sought to clarify on his proposal on creation of Office of Leader of the Opposition. The president dismissing claims he borrowed the idea from the Building Bridges initiative, which he opposed during his tenure as a deputy president.
BBI ilikuwa ni ukora mtupu. Hakukuwa na mapendekezo yoyote hapo. Unajua wale jamaa wa BBI waliweka ukora mwingi alafu wakaweka sukari juu.
The proposal by the executive has attracted negative reaction from the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition party. President Ruto, however, clarified the proposed office of Leader of the Opposition is an institution to maintain checks and balances on the government.
Mimi simtafuti mtu kazi. Nimeona kiongozi wa upinzani akisema yeye hataki hiyo kazi. Nani alikuwa anampatia kazi? Mimi sitafuti mtu yeyote kazi. Natafuta ofisi ya mambo ya kuhakikisha kwamba accountability ya serikali. Kama ningekuwa mtu selfish, mimi niko na haja gani na mtu ya kunipinga? Lakini mimi naelewa ya kwamba katika demokrasia hii power, watu kukorogwa na power ni rahisi. Kuna sababu ya kuwa na upinzani. Nikisema ofisi ya kiongozi wa upinzani, it is an institution. It is not a person. Mimi natafuta accountability. Ile uwajibikaji ndio mimi nashughulika nayo.
The head of state at the same time reminded Parliament to fast-track review of the standing orders to allow cabinet secretaries to appear before the House to account for their deeds.
Hata pale bunge tubadilishe standing orders ndio mawaziri waweze kwenda bunge wa prosecute mambo ya serikali, ndio wananchi waelewe kutoka waziri mwenyewe saa ile anaulizwa maswali mpango ya serikali kuhusu mambo ya kilimo, unga, nini inafanyika namna gani, ajibu pale akiwa bunge.
President Ruto also committed to ensure the 2/3 gender constitution requirement in the August House is resolved through a parliamentary review of the constitution. The president has proposed to Parliament a formula to guide the computation of gender ratio in Parliament based on numbers of members elected. Gishoki Washira, Prime Edition.
Now we take you down to Kandara, where our reporter Serafina Robi has been keeping tabs on what is happening in the mini by-election that started off this morning at 6 a.m. Good evening, Robi. How are you? Robi, we can see you. Kindly just bring us up to speed.
Indeed, a very good evening, Regina. We're coming to you live from Gararia Girls, which is the main tallying center for the Member of National Assembly by-election here in Kandara constituency, which is in Murang'a County, whereby 8 contenders are contesting for the seat for the Member of Parliament after the immediate former Member of Parliament, Alice Wahome, was appointed to be Cabinet Secretary for Water, Sanitation and Irrigation election and thereby leaving the seat vacant and thereby leading to this by-election that is being held here and also in other subsequent places. And here in Kandara, we have been following up on this by-election since 6 in the morning, and we can say that in the number of polling stations that we were able to visit, we were able to see a very low voter turnout in some of the polling stations. And we've been able to speak to the returning officer here at the main tallying center in Gararia Girls, and she tells us that there are about 197 polling stations, and she also confirms that there was a low voter turnout in these polling stations compared to the general election that was conducted on the 9th of August last year. And therefore, they also expect to have a lower voter turnout percentage, given that as of lunchtime, the percentage of voter turnout that they were able to record by around 1 p.m. today was about 13.7%. And she was able to tell us her name is Lina Kilonzi. She was able to tell us that so far they expect to get a percentage of up to 20% of the registered voters that were expected to cast their votes for this by-election. We were also able to speak to a number of aspirants during the day, and they were able to express their confidence in being able to win this seat, this parliamentary seat. And also, as you can hear from the background, that is the returning officer Lina Kilonzi just announcing some of the results that have been clenched or that have been tallied here that have been collected here at the main tallying center. And as you can hear, they continue to announce some of the results of the contenders, the main contenders. And so far, they've been able to announce up to 26 polling stations out of the expected 197. Then this goes to show that we'll be here out to deep in the night to get to follow up on these results that will be announced of the remaining polling stations, given that up to now only 26 polling stations, results have been announced from 26 polling stations. Also with me is one of my colleagues who is Kennedy Epalat, who's also following the by-election. And in other polling stations, perhaps Epalat, what were you able to notice in some of these polling stations?
Okay, I realized that unlike before, the turnout was very low. And going by what the leaders that we interviewed this morning, including the CS National Treasury, Professor Jugunandu, and other candidates, we realized that the turnout was low. And according to these leaders, especially Professor Ndungu, that it's the nature of the people of Kandara to prioritize agricultural production. So most of them were doing their domestic chores like plucking teeth, delivering milk to sell, then before coming back. So it was expected that by 4-5, most of the people would have turned out to vote. But all that remains to be seen because the ultimate decision maker is the returning officer. I believe that this will be over, in my estimation, by midnight.
Absolutely. That is one of my colleagues, Kennedy Epalat, whom we have been following up these by-elections at Kandara as they continue to announce. Now that is the 27th polling station out of the expected 197, and we'll continue to follow up to get to see candidates that we've been able to see who are leading are the UDA candidate, who is Chegen Njuguna, and the Ford Asili candidate, who is Titus Njau. Those are some of the candidates that we've been able to see that are leading in the results that have been announced. But we continue to follow up, given that the night is still very young, and we're not even halfway the number of polling stations here at Kandara constituency. So we'll continue to follow up to get to understand, to get to see who will be able to win this seat by the end of the tallying and collation of the results that are being brought in by different presiding officers from different polling stations. We're also told that security was beefed up. There was no insecurity in any of the polling stations in the constituency, as well as they were able to speak to the county commander, who say that also the announcing of the results at this main tallying center is going on well. There is no problem that has been experienced in any of these centers, especially at these main tallying centers. You can see these are some of the security officers who are manning this particular place to get to ensure that security is in order. And also there is the county commander, Ali Nono, who also spoke to during our 7 p.m. bulletin, and also be following up as the night goes by to get to understand the situation as it happens or as it unfolds. So far, that is the 27th polling station being announced, and out of the 197. So we'll continue to follow up to get to know who will be able to win the Member of Parliament or the Member of National Assembly seat here at Kandara constituency. Now I'll hand you over to my colleague Yusuf Farah, who is in Garissa. I'm Sarafina Robi. To you, Yusuf.
Thank you very much, Sarafina Robi, there in Kandara. And from Kandara now I welcome you to Garissa University, where this is the tallying center for the Garissa Township Member of Parliament seat, which has seen 103 polling stations, which people have come out to vote. And out of the 103 so far, 9 polling stations have been able to bring in their results here. As you can see at the screen there, the results are being shown, but so far 9 have been brought in. And basically, just to bring our viewers up to speed with the current results that we had before the ones that are there coming in now, out of 9 polling stations, we had a total of 1,101 votes, and Adeko Mohammed is leading with 818 votes. We have Dalal Nasir Mohammed coming in second at 182, Ibrahim Malo Shuri at 82, Amin Abdul Faisal at 18, Mohammed Abdi Karim Osman at 1, and Ahmed Abdul Rashid at 0. Outside this tallying center, the different IEBC officials are still bringing in their results. So of course, we'll be sitting here, staying until we have the last polling station bringing in their results, so that it can be counted. And by the time they're counted, they're announced, we will be here to bring in the results to our viewers. So we're urging them to keep it KBC Channel 1, so that we bring in the results of the successor of our current CS of Defense, that is Aden Barre Duale. From me here at Garissa, I'd like to hand you over to our colleague Ben Chumba in Elgeyo Marakwet. Over to you, Chumba.
Coming to you live from the
at around 5 p.m. and immediately the process of counting the votes started. And like we reported earlier during the day, is that the entire process was witnessed with a lot of low voter turnout, and it was not difficult for the presiding officers to count the votes. Basically, immediately after many polling stations had closed around 5 p.m., it took barely 2 hours for the process to conclude. And by actually 7 p.m., majority of the polling stations had concluded the process of counting the votes. And what is happening right now, these are pictures live from St. Patrick's Secondary School here in Iten, which is one of the tallying center for the KO North constituency. And presiding officers are still bringing in ballot boxes from their respective polling stations. And what process that is still undergoing here, where the presiding officers ensure that they submit the ballot boxes, and the returning officer here ensures that the ballot boxes are in good status and have not been tampered with, and therefore the results here will be verified and will be later sent to the county tallying center, whereby the winner of the Elgeyo Marakwet senatorial seat will be declared, and we do anticipate that will be tomorrow. But we did file a report during the day.
Thursday morning in Elgeyo Marakwet County, the residents are here to cast their votes to decide on who is going to be their next senator.
Nimepika hapa na nikautumiwa kwa uraisi. Jina langu ikapatikana haraka. Kimskit inafanya vizuri. Hivi sasa wana tu direct. Naona tu flow ni watu wanakuja ingawa ni wachache.
Ni smooth, hakuna kusukumana, hakuna maneno yeyote, inachukua muda mfupi sana.
Nimekuja sijamaliza hata dakika moja na nimemaliza kupiga kura yangu.
However, the exercise was largely characterized by low voter turnout in the county that has 213,000 registered voters spread across 554 polling stations.
Baridi haiwezi kuchangia kama mtu ameamua kwake kuja ku-exercise democratic right. Sitani kama baridi inaweza kuzuia mtu.
Sijui labda ni kwa sababu tumemaliza sherehe na watu wengine wamerudi kazini.
In by-elections, turnout is normally very low. Our target was 60%. But from the look of things, we might get maybe 40 to 50%.
In the morning we had 2% at 9. At 11 we had 7. Right now we have 13. That is approximate an increase of about 5% after every 2 hours.
Coming in the backdrop of rampant insecurity in the county, with the recent killing of 2 girls and theft of livestock by unknown assailants in Marakwet East, the situation may have instilled fear among residents.
The whole county, we had extensive voter bribing, which has been ongoing since last night up to now. But other than that, we haven't seen violence.
It's been smooth. There is security. The place is secure, and I've talked to people along Keria Valley, and they have assured me they are safe and there is no security threat.
6 candidates participated in the senatorial by-election, but the contest shaped up as a 2-horse race pitting UDA's William Kisang and Team Kipchumba of Party for Peace and Development (PPD). After residents of Elgeyo Marakwet exercised their constitutional mandate to vote, it is now upon the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to decide who will be the next senator of Elgeyo Marakwet County. Reporting for Prime Edition from Iten, Elgeyo Marakwet, I'm Ben Chumba.
Well, that was a comprehensive roundup of what is happening in the various areas that are holding by-elections, including Elgeyo Marakwet there, where we have Ben Chumba giving us what happened earlier on in the morning. But what is characterizing this particular by-elections is that there's low voter turnout, but the exercise seems to be seamless and peaceful. We also have an update from Kandara there, from Serafina Robi, as well as Garissa Township with Yusuf Farah. Our reporters are going to continue keeping tabs on the tallying process at the various county tallying centers, so to speak, and as they opine is that we might know the leaders tomorrow, but we'll keep the tabs on the process. For now, we take a quick breather. We'll be right back with more.
Usalama barabarani ni jukumu letu sote. Usiwaletee wanaokupenda majonzi bila sababu. Uwe dereva au uwe unatembea barabarani kwa miguu, fuata sheria zote za barabarani ili kujiepusha na ajali. Usalama barabarani unaanza na wewe. Ujumbe huu unaletwa kwako na Kenya National Highways Authority. Quality Highways, better connections.
Cheza loto, shinda pesa moto.
Wachua mamili leo na Loto Moto. Cheza ukianzia na shilingi 50 na ushinde milioni 2 kila siku. Kucheza ni rahisi zaidi. Kwenye M-Pesa, chagua lipa na M-Pesa. Paybill number, weka 757070. Account number, andika neno Loto. Kisha, weka star. Alafu nambari yako ya simu. Kwenye amount, weka kiwango chochote cha pesa. Kuanzia shilingi 50 hadi shilingi 2000. Lipa na usubiri draw. Makinika papa hapa ili utimize ndoto zako na Loto Moto. Cheza kwa kuwajibika. Mchezo huu ni wazi kwa watu walio na umri wa miaka 18 na zaidi. Ujumbe huu umeidhinishwa na BCLB. Cheza Loto Moto. Shinda pesa moto moto.
Good evening, you're watching Prime Edition. Now, thousands of mourners gathered at St. Peter's Square at the Vatican for the funeral of Pope Benedict. Pope Francis presided over the Requiem Mass, which saw readings in German, Italian, Arabic, Portuguese and French. Pope Benedict died on Saturday, aged 95 after years of illness. Over the past few days, some 200,000 people went to visit the Vatican to pay their respects to the former pontiff as he lay in state in front of the main altar at St. Peter's Basilica.
Thousands of people paid homage in St. Peter's Square in front of St. Peter's Basilica. European royals and thousands of clerics were in attendance. During the open-air Requiem Mass, co-celebrated by cardinals, bishops and priests, Pope Francis gave a homily in honor of his predecessor, speaking of wisdom, tenderness and devotion of the late Pope Benedict over the years. Since Pope Benedict was no longer head of state when he died, only official delegations from Italy and Benedict's native Germany attended. There was no display of usual purple regalia like the silver staff, a sign that he was no longer pope when he died. However, according to tradition, a lead tube containing an account of Benedict's papacy, as well as other items including Vatican coins minted during his reign, were placed in the coffin. The wooden coffin was then carried away to be sealed and placed in another coffin of zinc and an outer one of wood. It was buried in the crypt under St. Peter's Basilica, where Pope John Paul II was originally interred in 2005 before his body was moved up to a chapel after his beatification. In 2013, Benedict became the first pope to resign in 600 years, citing old age. Pope Benedict's death brings to an end the era of a pope and a former pope living side by side in the Vatican. It's also unprecedented in modern times for a living pope to bury his predecessor.
May he continue resting in peace. Now, the family of late veteran journalist Catherine Kasavuli is appealing to the government and Kenyans of goodwill to help them raise funds to clear a 4 million shillings hospital bill to pave way for her burial next week. A fundraising will be held this Saturday at the United Kenya Club to help cater for bills and meet funeral expenses.
With the demise of the celebrated media icon Catherine Kasavuli on Thursday, 29th December last year after battling cancer, family and friends have come out in public for the first time.
We knew she was a queen of the screen, but we didn't realize how big until now. And we thought that it was apt for us to come out and give the public information as to arrangements of the funeral.
The family, while addressing the media at Riverside Garden in Nairobi, has appealed to the government and the public at large to help them offset a hefty medical bill at the Kenyatta National Hospital to facilitate the release of the body of the late Kasavuli for burial.
As of now, what we're wishing and asking for is support to offset the current bill as is in hospital, and it keeps rising by the day to the pay bill number that we have given.
I am Catherine Kasavuli. I have missed you so much.
The late veteran journalist is celebrated as a people's person, full of joy, kind-hearted and loving.
For those who have been of help during these trying times, may God bless you.
It's been a new experience for me to understand just how much and how many lives Mom has touched. And I thank all the Kenyans, those within Kenya and in the diaspora, for the love and the support they've shown her and all the medical staff.
They thank you very much to the members of the Kenya public, people who've known Catherine, my sister. They've grown listening to her, and sadly she's not here with us.
Asante sana kwa rambirambi za Wakenya wote. Nashukuru na karibuni
kwa safari ya Catherine ya mwisho.
Consequently, the family is planning for official fundraising to be held on Saturday, 7th January 2023 at the United Kenya Club.
As a committee, what we have planned is that on 7th of this month, January, and that is Saturday, we will have the last fundraiser for the late Catherine Kasavuli at the United Kenya Club.
The funeral service will later be held in Nairobi on Thursday, 12th January, and the final send-off on Saturday, 14th January at Nyangori High School, then later laid to rest at her home in Vihiga. The M-Pesa paybill number is 8089700. The account number is Catherine Kasavuli. Opicho Chemtai for Prime Edition.
Catherine Kasavuli was a mentor and indeed a broadcast icon. We will miss her. She was part of the anchoring team and part of the KBC workforce. Let her soul continue resting in peace. Now let's go to the counties where State Department for Correctional Services Principal Secretary Mary Muthoni has called on the judiciary to first track cases involving mothers who have children in prison facilities across the country. Speaking at the Ruto Prison Training College, the PS said it is disheartening to see young children languishing in prison for crimes they never committed. Listen more from the county's news roundup.
State Department for Correctional Services Principal Secretary Mary Muthoni, in meeting with Kenya Prisons directors, regional commanders and officers in charge at Prison Staff Training College, said keeping minors in prison exposes them to contracting communicable diseases as well as living with stigma that comes with growing up in jail.
They'll be convicted, they've committed those crimes or not, but the judiciary can tell us. The judges are at an able position to really explain to us if it is okay. We also want to get to the standards of the UN, whereby our prisoners are treated like human beings. Some of them, we do not know whether they've committed those crimes because they are still in remand. So we will treat them as so until the judgment is made.
In Laikipia County, it is a reprieve for many patients who have in the past been forced to seek hospital services far from their homes after the county government of Laikipia commissions the state-of-the-art renal unit at the Nyahururu County and Referral Hospital. The project will also serve residents from neighboring Nyandarua, Nyeri and Baringo counties.
Katika hii eneo ya Mount Kenya region hakuna kama hiyo unit ya kwamba mahali kuna isolation bed. Kwa hivyo hii ni ya kwamba Laikipia County tumejali si kuhudumia tu watu wa Laikipia County, lakini tunataka kuelezea hata watu wa Nyandarua, watu wa Nakuru na hata watu wa Nyeri ya kwamba within the Mount Kenya region we do care.
In Meru County, a non-governmental organization known as Youth Against Drug Abuse has come up with a program to educate youths on the effects of drug abuse.
Our long-term goal, apart from these campaigns and sensitization of drug and substance abuse, is to acquire a sober nation.
Elsewhere, some teachers in Kitutu Church North constituency have been indicted for abandoning their professional calling to operate businesses at the expense of curriculum delivery. Area MP Japheth Nyakundu warned teachers against engaging in economic activities, saying this will distract them from their core mandates.
Kuna mtindo ambao unaendelea sasa. Walimu badala ya kukaa kwenye madarasa na kufunza, wameanza biashara ya bodaboda hapa. Wameanza biashara ya kuendesha mabaa hapa kwetu. Sisi tunaambia walimu wote mahali walipo, wachana na hiyo biashara, ingia darasani, fundisha watoto wetu kwa sababu hawa ndio viongozi wa kesho.
In Laikipia area, Senator John Kinyua has called on investors to conserve and to take advantage of the favorable climate and opportunities to invest in the county. Finally, former West Pokot Governor Professor John Lanyangapuo has called on elected leaders and those who lost in the last polls across the country to work together and shun divisive politics for development to be realized. Pauline Nasimiu for Prime Edition.
Maritime Tips brought to you by Kenya Maritime Authority. Preserve our marine environment. Oceans are our source of food, employment, recreation, fishing, shipping, and tourism. Therefore, properly dispose litter on waste bins during beach excursions. Do not throw plastic litter or pour oil into marine waters. Cut down on plastic use. Do not endanger marine life. Influence change near you. Share what you know with your friends and family. Report any accident or incident to the Regional Maritime Rescue Coordination Center. Kenya Maritime Authority for safe and efficient water transport.
Wachua mamili leo na Loto Moto. Kucheza ni rahisi zaidi. Kwenye M-Pesa, chagua lipa na M-Pesa. Paybill number, weka 757070. Account number, andika neno Loto, kisha weka star. Alafu nambari yako ya simu. Kwenye amount, weka kiwango chochote cha pesa, kuanzia shilingi 50 hadi shilingi 2000. Lipa na usubiri draw. Cheza kwa kuwajibika. Mchezo huu ni wazi kwa watu walio na umri wa miaka 18 na zaidi.
I'm talking to you.
And I'm not interested.
Did you threaten Julian?
Well, I see someone is in love.
Joel doesn't want her out.
I am the one who is running J&J.
It is mandatory that we have a Njuguna in the company.
Mukasirika vibaya sana. Na usitaki ona vile kunaweza kuwa. George ama Mama Paul wakiongea kuhusu Joel.
You're asking way too many questions, Nick. Are you worried?
I have to resign. What? Why? Is it because of Nick? Umeshindwa na Wayuni. Nani atakuweza wewe?
Ngoja utaona.
Kwani ulikuwa serious eh?
Baba sisi unaniumiza, unanipeleka.
That's no way to treat a lady.
Stay out of this, unasikia?
And parking, the president's roundtable with a section of media journalists yesterday there that essentially outlined his vision for the country in the year 2023 and also in the long term. But before we get there, the government projects inflation will ease in the next 2 months as food and electricity prices are expected to considerably drop. President William Ruto says the cost of maize flour and other foods will drop by February once the food imports hit the local market. This as the cost of production is also expected to reduce as the government is seeking to revise power tariffs downwards by March.
The government has a decision to remove subsidy programs for both maize flour and electricity, saying the programs were expensive and yet they did not reduce the cost of living. President William Ruto now says his government intends to reduce the cost of food prices by importing deficits in the short term to cushion Kenyans from escalating food prices. President Ruto reiterated the government position that the price of basic foodstuffs will reduce drastically in the next 2 months when the first food import consignments are expected to hit the market.
Hali yule mkulima analima saizi ama anavuna, anaangalia mahali yeye yuko. Mimi kama kiongozi wa nchi naangalia nchi nzima, na naelewa ya kwamba kuna huyu atazalisha kiasi fulani, lakini mahitaji ya nchi ni kiasi fulani, na utafiti wetu kama serikali unaonyesha ya kwamba tuko na gap ya karibu magunia milioni 10.
This as the government seeks to import up to 8 million tons of fertilizer before the long rain seasons begins to reduce the country's food import deal and support local production.
Sasa tumeagiza mbolea gunia milioni 6. Pengine tutaongezea ifike milioni 7 ama milioni 8 kulingana na vile ile utafiti tunaofanya saa hizi kuwasajili wakulima na kuwauliza zile aina ya mbolea wanazihitaji na kwa muda gani.
To further reduce the cost of production and stabilize the cost of basic commodities, The government is hopeful that electricity prices will reduce in March this year. President Ruto says the current power tariffs are up for review in March this year, and the government seeks to leverage on this to renegotiate better tariffs for Kenyans.
Na vile nilitangaza juzi, tulifanya hiyo participation ya tariff 2019. Itakuja tena this year mwezi wa 3. Tutaikalia, tuiangalie, tuone ni tuko na tariff viwango tofauti tofauti. Tuko ile inaitwa lifeline ya wananchi wala wanatumia unit 30 na kurudi chini. Tuko na tariff ya katikati. Tuko na tariff ya wale ambao ni industrialists. Hiyo mambo yote tunayashughulikia ili tuhakikisha kwamba kuwe na stima ambayo tunaweza kuigharamia.
President William Ruto emphasized that the country will also leverage on the cultivation of GMO to further reduce the cost of food in the country, among other raft of measures to strengthen local agriculture production. Mason Druba for Prime Edition.
Well, there's what President William Ruto envisages for this country 2023, and the cost of living has been at the top agenda, or rather top priority. But is it tenable? Joining us this evening is none other than Ken Gishinge, who is a chief economist with Manyara, to help us understand that. Cost of living, you've heard what the president had said. Is it tenable?
Many thanks for having me, Regina. Indeed, the cost of living has been a significant issue. Many Kenyans are living between a rock and a hard place, and the numbers have been quite high, almost 9.5. It's come down to 9.1. I think the president was correct in saying that the food component is one of the biggest components that needs to be addressed. So boosting agriculture, and with good rains, we do expect to see those coming down. But there are other elements that contribute to inflation.
Now, let's talk about inflation, because if you look at the inflation rate between September, October, November, it went down a little bit marginally in December, but still in the 9-point plus mark. And now here the president is confident, saying that it will ease in the next 2 months. How tenable? What parameters would he be looking at?
Well, I think he's possibly looking at the food side. The fact that if we have good rains and we have good produce, you might start seeing that number coming down. However, there are other components that drive inflation. There's cost of fuel,
yes,
which is dictated by global events, but there's also the taxation events. When you have VAT added on so many products, also those contribute to inflation. So yes, solving food part is critical, but you also need to look at the fuel part, and that's really dictated by global geopolitical events.
Since you've talked about fuel, and fuel plays a heavy role, especially when you say basically generally the cost of energy. There's something also the president mentioned and said that the fuel subsidies was not sustainable in the long run, that it costed the treasury government more than it actually, and it did not ease the cost of fuel. What do you think? Should we have the subsidies back? Would it ease, pain at the pump, or?
Anytime you remove a subsidy, particularly on fuel, it means the cost of fuel prices go up, and it means the cost of transport, the cost of production goes up. So what we've seen is a reduced economic activity, because a taxi driver, perhaps who would have gone 10 kilometers, will probably do 5 kilometers. So reduced economic activity can lead to a slowdown and can lead to lower revenue collection. So in my estimate, I think we should have kept the subsidy. Yes,
would this have been attainable in the long run?
We were spending 16 billion shillings per month.
Yes.
But the argument is, when you're spending 16 billion shillings a month, but you have economic activity going on, and you're able to raise revenue from those economic activities, you're able to offset the cost of that subsidy. And that's the reasoning behind the subsidy, that yes, it's a cost, but the revenue you collect from vibrant economic activity will offset.
So you side with the president on that?
Well, I would have believed that it would have been better to retain the subsidy, yes.
Now let's find out what's your take would be when it comes to matters of what the president said in regard to matters of Hustler Fund, where he said that he is ready to take full responsibility in case the fund actually does not do well. Now, the head of state backed the fund, insisting that it will lead to reduced interest rates. He further said that the fund is fully dependent on technology and headed by a consortium of legal experts to ensure that it runs smoothly. Ruto also added that the second phase is set to be rolled out next month with the aim of lending to SACCOs and other such investments. So far, over 21 million Kenyans have borrowed 12 billion shillings from the Hustler Fund.
To run this fund. And that is why this fund is successful. We have a board, that originally was part of KNEST, which is now the board we are adopting to run the Hustler Fund. And the Secretariat is actually a consortium that we established between the government and our national mobile operators. And we have a complete Secretariat, including even a call center that makes sure that citizens can deal with it.
And that is what the president said, Gishinga. Now, from an economist's point of view, the Hustler Fund, do you think it is meeting its objective, and this is re-energizing MSMEs and also just ensuring that majority of Wanjiko gets access to credit?
I think the concept of the Hustler Fund was extremely innovative. The idea that you can get money to citizens for them to be able to conduct activities, I think that is profound, and I think it's something that needs to even be studied more. However, I think the first implementation was a bit underwhelming in terms of just the amount that was given and the expectations of it to be paid in 2 weeks. So I think the second phase that's going to come in February, I really hope that lives up to what was in the campaign, which was money for businesses. So even if you're a small business, you do need 500 shillings is a bit on the lower side. You do need a big amount to be able to conduct. Even if you're running a barber shop, you know, the equipment to shave, it's about 7,000 shillings. So you do need slightly bigger. So we do hope the second phase sort of really goes towards the SMEs and if it does, I think it can be a major success.
But now, the sustainability of it, given the statistics that we've received at the end of December, around 10 billion had been disbursed, but only actually 30% of that had been repaid. That issue, you know, it's quite political. We have some leaders urging their people to take the fund, not pay back. But now, how will this, in the long run, affect the effectiveness of this particular fund? From where you sit?
From where I sit, I think that was largely expected because the original idea of the Hustler Fund was it was supposed to go to small businesses. Small businesses tend to move money in and out every day. So for them, repayability is quite simple. But in the first instance of this implementation, it went out to anybody who had a mobile phone. People, whether you're doing business, whether you have a job or don't have a job. So it was naturally expected, from my perspective, that there'll be elements that will be stranded in terms of paying it back. So possibly the lessons learned in the first one are what will guide the second phase.
Now, let's find out. President William Ruto has promised Kenyans that he will make the Galana Kulalu irrigation project stand, or rather successful. The project stalled in 2019 owing to the alleged misappropriation of funds. The head of state was speaking last night at State House. In a roundtable media interview, said through the project, the country will be able to produce adequate food that will make the country food secure.
The Galana Kulalu irrigation project was said to be the biggest in East and Southern Africa and a major milestone for Kenya in attaining food security. It was projected to cultivate 200,000 acres of the Galana Kulalu complex to meet 41% of the country's annual maize consumption of 48 million bags in order to cushion farmers against an oversupply of maize that could hurt their earnings. Maize at Galana was said to be grown for one season annually. However, the ambitious government project stalled in 2019 owing to the alleged misappropriation of funds. President William Ruto last night promised to make the project work by being able to cultivate sufficient maize to achieve food security.
Mimi nataka niwahakikishie Wakenya, ile Galana ndani ya miezi miwili mitatu nitaanza kujenga damu pale Galana, na tayari kuanzia hii Februari zile ekari 10,000 ambazo tayari tulikuwa tumeifanya kama model farm 10,000 acres na iko mpaka na pivot, hapo tutaanza kuzalisha chakula mwaka huu.
State House had earlier issued a statement saying the government will construct a dam to help with the irrigation of more land, with the construction set to commence in April.
Na nitaongezea ekari zingine 10,000 kufikia mwezi wa 6-8 hapo, kwa sababu ile maji iko pale inatosha ekari 20,000. Alafu baada ya hiyo, hii dam mimi najenga beginning the next 90 days. Kwa mwaka moja na nusu ikiwa tayari, tutaweka between 300 and 400,000 acres kuzalisha chakula pale Galana.
Meanwhile, the president said the cost of living will go down once the country produces enough food that can enable it to sustain itself. Frederick Moki for Prime Edition.
Gishinga, what's your take in regard to the president's sentiments around Galana Kulalu?
Well, I think the president is alluding to the fact that there are economies of scale. When you have 10,000 acres, you're able to do things at a cheaper cost and at a faster cost towards food production, which is a priority now and was a priority of the previous administration. So I think to the extent that that can be revived, because expectations were very high on that. I think the failure of it was not an economic issue. I think there were internal wrangles that made it. I don't think it was an economic issue, but I think to the extent that that can be revived and contribute to the food reserve, I think can still be a game changer for the country.
The president revoked the subdivision of this particular land. Maybe you're coming from that point, you know, with a large scale and such, you can do much more. But before we bring this conversation to a close, let's look at where we are economically. In June, we have debts to pay. And the president there earlier on said that his administration targets to at least, rake in or rather collect an extra trillion shillings. When I heard that as a Kenyan, I'm just thinking, oh my God, where will we get the money? Is it tenable?
Well, I think there are two parts to this. Yes, there is the revenue collection part, which we need to continue as a country, because the country is growing. We are a country of 55 million people, so we do need the resources. And this country is capable of, if we have the right tax policies. I was a bit surprised that there was no mention of a change in tax policy, because if you look at the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, there have been talks about moving Kenya towards more progressive tax laws and less regressive tax laws. But
as you speak from an economist's point of view, we find ourselves within the current tax policy. We tax income and not wealth. If we were to interchange, would it change our coffers? Taxing wealth vis-a-vis and like focusing on income.
Absolutely. And I think that was the original direction. And in fact, when you look at the principles of taxation, those that we tend to support what you call progressive tax laws. When you have a VAT-driven economy, those are regressive tax laws. They impact the people at the bottom the most.
Yes.
And given that you're trying to run a bottoms-up economic philosophy, it kind of contradicts it. So I think I wish they would have really reviewed, because this is when you come up in a new administration, you have a really good opportunity to review the tax policy. But that said, I think the issue of digitizing payments so that the government can collect revenue, I think that's going to be a good story. My biggest concern is the 300 billion shillings tax cut. And I'm surprised it didn't come up yesterday. None of the journalists raised it. And that's really the big topic in the room.
Yes.
When you have 300 billion shillings budget cuts, what that means is you'll have lower spending, government spending, you'll have reduced cash flow in the economy, and that will mean you'll have a tougher business environment and higher unemployment. I was a bit surprised that didn't come up, because that is actually really
the elephant in the room.
And
you see, maybe it's because you speak business, and as we had our journalists there, We were more of a political journalists than financial reporters. Well, that has been our guest this evening, just trying to unpack the President's Roundtable that took place yesterday there. Ken Geshinga, Chief Economist, Mintore. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
This brings this side of the conversation to a close. We're inviting Karen to bring us up to speed with what has been happening in the sporting arena.
Kupata skiza tune ya mambo mema, dial star 811 star 815 hash.
Mambo mema huwaendea watu wanaosubiri, ila mambo mema zaidi huwaendea watu wanaoyatafuta. Kupata mambo mema ni kufanikiwa, na kufanikiwa ni kutabasamu, kutafakari na kuhesabu mema na baraka ulizozichukulia hatua, ukazitafuta na kuzipata. Amka, tafuta ufanisi wako.
Kupata skiza tune ya mambo mema, dial star 811 star 815 hash. Star 811 star 815 hash.
Ni mimi nakulipa.
Lakini swali
hawezi kutorotize ni kufanya nini hiyo?
Mimi Mungu ungane na mimi tufanye tuchape huyo mzee ndio atoe 50,000 kwa nini?
Ndio nipoteze kazi kama wewe. Alikasirika na akaruka na boss.
So in that company who are you?
Mimi hakuna mtu hapo.
Thank you. Can you walk out? Wewe 50 ingetoka mungefanya aje? Tungekuwa mbele wewe. Anaona mheshimiwa. Unatandikwa mpaka mfupa ya mkongo inafunjika. Hiyo ndio ukweli wa mambo. Alipigwa na wafanyakazi.
Wewe ndio ulinichapa, sio wafanyakazi.
Welcome back. A very good evening to you. Let's now take a look at what's making headlines in the world of sports. My name is Karen Kibet. Now, the World Athletics President Sebastian Coe has said that they are happy with Kenya's commitment to fight the doping menace that has beleaguered the sport. Coe said this after meeting President William Ruto and the Sports Cabinet Secretary Ababu Namwamba in Nairobi.
Following a meeting between World Athletics and Kenya on the sidelines of the Global Federations Council meeting in Rome in November last year, the State Department for Sports held a multi-sectoral meeting to lay out a strategy to fight the doping menace in the country. The plan developed was discussed between World Athletics President Sebastian Coe and Sports Cabinet Secretary Ababu Namwamba and presented to President William Ruto. At a media briefing in Nairobi after meeting the head of state, Coe said that he's pleased with the commitment to stop the number of doping cases, but said it will take time to get tangible gains.
Quite the reverse. The fact that all these agencies are in alignment and prepared to work alongside World Athletics and the Athletic Integrity Unit is a very, very important statement. The journey will be a long journey. We should not kid ourselves that this is going to be achieved overnight.
Namwamba stated that they will work with World Athletics to implement this plan that entails more education, investigations and testing.
We are coming after you if you are an unscrupulous agent, coach, trainer, manager. We are coming for you. If you are running a training camp that is a breeding ground for doping, we are coming for you.
We've already come up with a test distribution plan, and we are targeting to do at least 3,000 tests for a starter, and that is only on athletics, because that is where we've seen the problem is.
Athletics Kenya President Jackson Tuwei said the federation is committed to the laid out plan.
So now they have discovered a new area where they can cheat the athlete to dope so that they can be paid. And this is the thing that we are talking about. And that is why when we came up with this request is to see that we work as a multi-agency team, because it goes beyond our capacity.
Despite the country losing out to Tokyo's bid to host the 2025 World Athletics Championships, Namwamba said Kenya will seek to host the 2029 event and the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations.
that we have requested World Athletics to support us with the technical, to offer or to advance technical support to us in terms of assessment of our facilities. We are also going to be doing a gap analysis, a very thorough gap analysis in terms of where we are and where we need to be.
Kenya has been in the World Athletics Category A grouping, and the latest interventions come following the sanctions imposed on over 40 for doping violations last year. Reporting for Prime Edition, I am Daniel Wahome.
Thank you, Wahome, for that detailed report. Moving on, the Sportswoman Living with Disability Award at the Soya Awards Gala has attracted 5 nominees led by Paralympian Nancy Chelagat, who clinched gold in the T11 400-meter race during the 2022 World Para-Athletics Grand Prix and 13th FASA International Championship in Dubai. With the gala slated for 20th January at the KICC, Chelagat leads the list of nominees that also comprise of Helen Wawera, who won a bronze medal at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham. Also in the nomination list, looking to win the coveted award are the Deaf Olympics athletics trio of Beryl Wamira, Lynette Nanjala and Sarah Wangare. Wamira clinched silver in the 4x400-meter relay at Caxias Deaf Olympics. Nanjala chalked up a silver medal in the 4x400-meter relay in Brazil, while Wangare also took the 10,000-meter silver in Brazil, opening Kenya's medal account before clinching bronze in the steeplechase. The fifth leg of the NCBA US Kids Golf Nairobi Local Tour came to a close on Wednesday at the Royal Nairobi Golf Club, with 136 budding golfers taking the chance to showcase their golfing skills. In the boys categories, Kevin Ayena starred in the 15 to 18-year-old category after shooting a score of 88 gross, followed by Ryan Mutinda, who took the runners-up position. Shashwat Harisha was the champion in the 13 to 14-year-olds with 79 gross. He beat Junior Manji, who claimed second position in the category. Peter Gathoko's gross score of 83 was enough to earn him bragging rights among 12-year-olds, followed by Aidan Gachora. Among the 11-year-olds, Mwathi Gicheru carded a score of 74 gross to emerge the winner ahead of Amar Shah. And those are all the sports stories we had for you tonight. From me, Karen Kibet, to you, have yourself a peaceful night. I now hand you over back to my colleague, Regina Manyara.
For that update in regard to where we are in as far as sports is concerned, and I'm sure everyone who enjoys soccer, there are matches that you're eagerly anticipating, so we'll not keep you here for too long. I've been your host, Regina Manyara. Thank you so much for your time. As sign language interpreter has been Lady Lucy Maura, and our guest. Let's give you an opportunity to sign out. One day as an anchor, please close this bulletin.
Thank you very much. I'm Ken Gishinga, and it's been a pleasure being here.
There you have it. Have a pleasant evening ahead.